We have everybody here, looking at the number of people joining the meeting. So let me start. First of all, I would like to welcome you at this seminar or workshop. We'll today discuss, and our theme is how can regions and cities deliver on the European Green Deal. We'll start now, so sharply, and we have to finish at 6, so we'll have to keep the timing and everything in order. I'll make sure as a moderator that this is on track. My name is Andrzej Celiński, and I work in the European Commission as a policy assistant to the chief spokesperson. Now, let me start with a couple of, let's say, welcoming remarks, and also show you how this panel will look like. We start with a discussion, let's put it that way, on our housekeeping rules and how we're going to proceed with that. So first of all, the involvement of regions and cities is essential to achieve the goals of the European Green Deal. So this is something that we will be discussing here shortly. We have a couple of housekeeping rules that maybe we'll start with them first, and then I will present the speakers, if that's possible. So please keep your microphones muted at all time, and if needed, moderator will give you the floor. To ask questions, we'll ask you kindly to put your remarks in the chat, so then we can pick the best ones and come in the second part to the panelists after their short introduction and try to respond to them. So please type your questions in the chat window and write your name so that we can then reach out to the panelists, and I will give them the right to speak afterwards. Let me start first with the why we meet here and what is the goal of this debate. The involvement of regions and cities is essential to achieve the goals of the European Green Deal. Today we have the representative, as you can see on the panel on the slide, from both the European Commission and the regions and the umbrella organizations. What is the essential question that we probably will try all to discuss today is what can regional actors do to implement those policies successfully? So what is the European Green Deal and how the regions can tackle it? As we already said, the meeting brings us a variety of people. We start with the opening remarks from the distinguished panelists. First of them will be Grzegorz Radziejewski, who is the policy assistant at the DG budget in the European Commission. We'll hear from him about the main idea behind the Green Deal and the perspective of the multi financial framework, so the next EU budget discussions that are now and negotiations that are now going, and what is the state of play on them, and how the green financing is the key tool in understanding this budget, the future proposals from the Commission. Then we will go to Louise Coffineau, that will present that she's representing the Eurocities, and she's the policy advisor for the European for environment and climate at Eurocities, which is an umbrella organization for cities and regions. And she will give us a bit of an insight about how some of the initiatives that are taken by the cities and regions can be in a way leading into the Green Deal, achieving the goal of the first climate neutral continent by 2050, and how we can do that by doing this through our new growth strategy. Then we will have a representative from the Mid-Norway Country Council, Bern, that is a climate coordinator in Trøndelag, but you can then pronounce it correctly because Norwegian is not my strongest force, but she will be presenting the regional strategy for climate transition and ideas how to implement green solutions, and basing on things that are being done in Mid-Norway region. So I believe that could be very interesting for us, we are mostly focused on what is happening here in the European Union, but I think this Nordic perspective can be very interesting and can add us a bit of a different way of looking and how we can achieve the Green Deal goals. Then in the end, least but not least, we will have the representative of Ville, and that will be Nicolas Joao, and he's a deputy mayor for urban planning and housing. Previously, he was a deputy mayor for sustainable development, and he will share with us some experience with and good practice from the projects that they are launching in the city of Caen. I think with that a bit pre-longish introduction, I will go to a poll that we foreseen for you, the attendees, to see what you would be mainly interested in during our discussion. So please, if possible, click on the right button that you believe is the one that you are the most interested in. and then we would like to see what are your opinions before we start the introductory phase. So please take a minute. I'll then go to maybe in the meantime to introduce Grzegorz and to let you know a bit about him when you are trying to find out which of those questions is the most one that most you best. So Grzegorz Radziejewski, that I know quite well, he's a policy analyst in DG BUDG. Before that, he worked in the European Commission since 2012. From 2014 until 2019, he was a member of the cabinet of the previous European Commission Vice President Irki Katainen, where he worked with green growth, energy union, transport, and budget. Before joining the Commission, he worked at the Polish Polish Permanent Representation, for those who are not from Brussels, to the EU as a finance minister representative. And before that, he was actually working in the Polish finance ministry. Grzegorz, without further ado, and let's see the poll results maybe first. That would be interesting for us to learn. So we can see that the most of you are actually interested in inspiration and good practice on how to implement green solutions, which is great because actually three of our speakers will be mostly speaking of that. But also some of you are interested in as a Green Deal as a whole and the MFF. So I would think that would be also good that we start with that, and then our distinguished panelists will go forward with answering the questions that you are mostly interested in. So I think, Grzegorz, if you can start with something of a holistic approach, why Green Deal? What is the most interesting in it? And we see a Green Deal as a tool for growth, of course, in the Commission, but some of people might see it as a bit of a repression. So let's please tell us more how it's seen from the perspective of the Commission, and also how this is, because we know that Green Deal is a goal, but to achieve that we have to have tools, and there are two main tools that the European Union has at disposition. One is, of course, the legal approach, and another one is the financial tool that we can use to achieve our goals. So please, Grzegorz, if you give us some insight on how the MFF is here, what is the role of the budget, and how the negotiations are going. Of course, with a small disclaimer that we are in the middle of negotiations, so I'm sure that not everything can be said publicly, but I think it will be still interesting to see what is your perspective on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrzej. Hello, everyone. Indeed, I will do my best to present in 10 minutes all these elements that have been mentioned by Andrzej. Not an easy task, given that we could actually talk about Green Deal probably the entire day, and on the MFF as well the entire day. So, and by the way, I hope that the MFF negotiations are rather closer to the end rather than in the middle. So it's just to start with on a more optimistic note. Can we move to the slides? I've prepared a few slides just to help us. Yes, to help us glide through this. So yeah, Green Deal. Let's start with this. Of course, I mean we are this notion is omnipresent these days. Maybe it is useful to have a look and come back a bit where it comes from originally. It's been set out in the political priorities of the van der Leyen Commission as one of the 6 big headline ambitions. If you want to read in more detail about that and what it is based on, then I refer you to the Commission communication from December 2019. Clearly, as the name says, we talk about the climate change and the climate ambition. So the Green Deal, European Green Deal, is just a commitment of European long-standing ambition when it comes to the climate change. But of course, as Andrzej mentioned, it is not only about that, and certainly the fighting climate change is going to be the big challenge for our generation and probably the next ones as well. But as we want to do and we should do in Europe and elsewhere, we want to always turn the challenge into the opportunity, and that is why the European Green is something which this presents the coherent and comprehensive approach how to transform the EU while taking care of climate in a sustainable manner, so that the objective, the social objective, like job creating, the environmental objective, of course, goes without saying, and the economic objectives, because we count on many jobs being created, but also moving our economy into more competitive track vis-a-vis the big players outside. This is these three goals, the pillars of the sustainable development, we see all together, and that is all about this is all, what the Green Deal is all about. And of course, to reach the Green Deal ambition, then this transformation of the EU must be led in appropriate manner. Appropriate meaning it must be just, it must be fair. You for sure you have heard many times that no one can be left behind in these process. In particular, of course, it refers to those regions, those industries, those workers that will be faced with the biggest challenges in the transformations. We need all hands on deck. We need everyone participate in this process. So could we move to the next one, please? That is the slide that illustrates the complexity of the challenge. This also, I mean, the mere number of and various elements that contribute to the Green Deal, they show the complexity, and of course it's all these initiatives that you can see here, where they are interlinked. They should be seen as complementary, but also linked with each other. And as you could see as well from very first glance and quick glance, they cover the huge sphere. Actually, we are already at the end of the 2020, so almost 1 year has passed since the communication on the Green Deal. Many of these elements of the Green Deal has been already, the initiatives have been already delivered. Of course, the challenge will be ongoing, and the follow-up will be their implementation is still ahead of us. But some of those elements have been already addressed. And let me mention, for example, the industry and circular economy. So the circular economy action plan was presented already in March 2020, together with the industrial strategy, by the way, which also shows how we see the future of European industry. The farm to fork strategy, for example, on your right hand side, the third green rectangular, there's this strategy has been tabled already in May this year. Last week, for sure, it has not gone unnoticed. We have tabled the renovation wave, so something which is really like very it touches upon everyone, every citizen in Europe. So you see that these deliverables are being prepared and presented. Of course, on the left hand side, top. Increasing the climate ambition for 2030. This also, for sure, you have heard about. This resonated quite loud these days. Yes, we are accelerating on this way. So please move to the next slide, which is actually, if we could turn to the next one. Yes, this is actually a bit of touching upon the same main message I wanted to convey. All EU actions, literally all EU actions, will contribute in the months, in the years to come to completing the to implementation of the Green Deal. There's lots of policy levers they need to act together. Of course, Andrzej mentioned about the regulation. Of course, there are standards that we want to set to also to strengthen the single market in this respect. Of course, this could lead to in parallel to the strengthening of the position of the competitiveness of the European industries. Of course, there is a trade aspect in when it comes to our reach out and contacts with the third countries. There's research and innovation, huge investment there, and now we, of course, this presentation or this kickstart. Quick intervention of mine is going to be focused more on the on the investment and on the what EU budget can deliver in this exercise. As I said at the very beginning, actually we could talk about all these policy levers probably entire day, but let's focus on the budget, which is the co-topic of this presentation. So if we could turn to the next, move to the next slide, please. This is where we are. The caveat with the MFF, so multi-annual financial framework. As you know, the budget for European budget for 21-27 period. The caveat Andrzej mentioned, and I also referred to it. We are just about to, hopefully, finish the negotiations. So of course, all what I'm talking about now is not set in stone. We have to this slide and the next slides will refer to the state of play, which is there out there as post European Council meeting in July. So that's the point of references of all these figures. Of course, they can still be changed, but that is this is where we are today. So that is why you'll see them on the screen. Can we still come back to the previous one, because I wanted to underline that this new financial framework, when it's done finally, is going to be first of all different than previous ones when it comes to scale. If you add these two elements, because the next 7 years budget will be created and will be based on two pillars. The multi-annual financial framework, as we know, so the traditional budget where there are traditional headings and like cohesion, agriculture. I believe that most of us of you already have seen those. That's the budget which is being paid and fueled up with money by member states regularly by monthly contributions. While the novelty in this budget is that this upper part, and that is the next generation. That's the instrument which is supposed to address the crisis, the situation that we are in the midst of the pandemic, and that's the temporary reinforcement of the size of 750 billion, which is going to be financed not by member states directly, but rather by the loans that the Commission will be taking from the market, and then on loan to the member states to finance their recovery from the crisis. So now we could move to the next one, please. And here, of course, I will not go through all these figures. It's just the illustration again. The traditional approach to the budget. You have the headings there: single market, cohesion, natural resources. You have how much money you will find for each and every heading in the MFF. So this traditional MFF and next generation EU. So this extraordinary pillar added in view of the crisis, and the last column, that's the total. So altogether 1.8 trillion euros foreseen for the investment from the EU budget for the next years. Please move on with the next slide. And here is I referred to the European Council conclusions already in that were agreed. For sure you all remember the drama in July, 4 days, for the I have to speed up. I see in this in the presentation. So let me just focus on the essentials from the from what the leaders of member states agreed in July when it comes to climate. You see this highlighted. 30% of all the money will be devoted to climate. 30% out of 1.8 trillion is more than 500. It's 540 billion euros. Of course, the point of reference in the long term, it's the climate neutrality, and the 2030 climate targets were also mentioned, as well as the Paris Agreement. So the next one, please. And how it looks like comparing to the past. We are 10% past MFF, past budget, 7 years budget. 30% target for next 7 years is 10% or 10 percentage points higher than the current MFF. It's still even 5% higher than the Commission proposal originally. So you see that in the negotiations, ambition and the appetite has grown. Now, there are few programs and instruments quite emblematic in the EU budget. For example, Just Transition Fund. 100% of its money will be devoted to climate. There are also innovative solutions, like Next Generation EU will be financed from the market, as I said, but it is going to be financed from by the issuance, or 30% of the money will be financed by issuance of the green bonds, which is also something new and innovative. Again, caveat for the very end: this is all still under discussion. Not many things probably will be changed, but still there is a potential for changes. Climate and biodiversity mainstreaming is still being debated, and one of the points. These are one of the points of horizontal points debated by the institutions taking part in the negotiations. Sorry for being too long. As I said, it is challenging to cover such huge chunks of information in 10 minutes, but I did my best. I'm happy to listen to others. Thank you.
Thank you, Grzegorz. I will just remind all that if you have questions, either to Grzegorz or the future panelists, please type them into the chat, and then we'll try to come back to them. So if without further ado, I will go now to our next speaker, because Grzegorz was speaking more of a, let's say, European policy making perspective, but I think it's worth now going more to nitty-gritty and how the regions are actually challenging this, and cities and regions are challenging the Green Deal, as it is nice to lay out policies, which we do here in the Commission, but it's then to introduce them mostly to the regions and to the cities, which I think is very interesting to hear that perspective. Now we have Louise Coffineau, who will represent the Eurocities, which is the network of 190 cities in 39 countries, representing over 100 million people, which is a lot in the end. But I think it's very interesting to hear from her a bit more about the, let's say, how the initiative on the level of cities and regions can be taken up to deliver on the Green Deal. So please, Louise, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Andrzej. Good afternoon to everyone. Indeed, I think my role in this panel is to make the link between the presentation on the Commission and the presentation we're going to hear afterwards from region and cities. And if you allow me, I will start with a very simple statement. Cities are part of the problem, but are also the solution. The problem, because cities, as you may know, they produce 72% of global emissions, and it's estimated by 2050, almost 85% of Europeans will live in cities. The problem as well, because you may all know that the most pronounced impacts of climate change, such as heat waves, heavy precipitation, floods, and drought are already happening in cities. You probably witness it already, and this will increase over the years. But cities are also the solution, because this is at local level that we can take concrete actions for both mitigation and adaptation to climate change. So I will start on mitigation, because this is the flagship initiative of the European Green Deal, this EU climate law, which is aiming at making Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And on that, cities are already paving the way to climate neutrality. 64% of Eurocities members have already committed to become climate neutral by 2050. And among them, it's already 12 cities that have committed to become climate neutral by 2040, which means 10 years earlier than the EU climate law. Cities are currently developing and implementing ambitious climate action plans by, for instance, implementing nature-based solutions, tackling transport emission, setting rules to address air and water pollution, or encouraging circular construction, using their purchase power to foster sustainable consumption, or even providing guidance for building performance. In other words, cities are working to make themselves a better, cleaner, and greener place to live in. That was from mitigation. On an adaptation to climate change, which is, I think, a very valuable pillar as well to discuss today. I think urban planning is essential when it comes to adapting cities to climate change. Unsustainable urban development, such as decreasing the amount of green and blue spaces in cities, urban sprawl, mineral surfaces, etc., increases the impacts of climate-related hazards. And on the contrary, climate-adapted urban planning and urban design can substantially increase the scale, reduce the scale of the future damages. In the Green Deal, the Commission has announced that it will come forward also with an EU climate adaptation strategy to 2030. It should be published by early next year. But here again, cities haven't waited for the Green Deal to adopt local climate adaptation strategies to reduce the impact of climate change, but also to make their territories more resilient and to protect their citizens, including the most vulnerable ones. Nearly 90% of Eurocities members have already adopted a climate adaptation strategy. And here I would like to get the inspiration from 3 case studies from cities when it comes to adaptation to climate change. The first one I would like to talk about is the one from Utrecht in the Netherlands. So the city of Utrecht has deployed a wide-scale installations of green roof on their bus stops. You may know that green roofs are good to capture particles, to store rainwater, provide cooling when it's too hot in the city, and also promote urban biodiversity by creating some green corridors. The second example I would like to take is the one from Paris in France, obviously. Paris has big plans to clean the river Seine for the 2024 Olympic Games. So the principle of the plan is quite simple. It's to retain the rain as close as possible where it falls. So from green roof with rainwater collectors to permeable cycling path, the plan Paris Pluie proposes lots of solutions and has multiple positive effects for both the city and the citizens by fostering biodiversity, creating a coolness island, but also making the city more pleasant for the citizen and to create more space for interactions. And the last example I would like to take here is the one from Porto in Portugal. The city is planning to green 130 roofs of city-owned properties to create an additional 13 hectares of green space in the city. These roofs will deliver several benefits to the city, such as helping to improve the thermal insulation of the buildings, retaining water during the rainfall peaks, but also storing carbon, promoting biodiversity, and also improving the landscape. So, yes, cities are well aware of the challenges, and they are not just delivering EU policies, they are also pushing them forward. One of the ways they do so is by taking up voluntary commitments, such as the Command of Mayor. You may be aware about what is the Command of Mayor. It's the world's largest movement for local climate and energy actions. It gathers more than 10,000 local and regional authorities across 57 countries, and they voluntarily commit to achieve and exceed the EU climate and energy target. So this is for mitigation, but also for adaptation, because covenant signatories have committed to carry out risk and vulnerability assessment to develop adaptation action plans. So that was the first initiative I wanted to mention. The second one, when it comes to the voluntary commitments of cities, is the Green City Accord. So it's quite a new Commission's initiative aiming at implementing the EU environmental legislation in cities, with cities. This is in line with the Green Deal. In fact, it was mentioned many times in the Green Deal communication. It tackles biodiversity, air quality, waste, water, but also noise. And if you want to hear more about the Green City Accord, you can attend the launch event, which is going to take place during the European Week of Regions and Cities on the 22nd of October from 11:30 to 1. So all of that, all these commitments from cities cannot happen without the full commitments of all of us, of everyone. The goal of making Europe climate neutral by 2050 will only be achieved through the effective involvement and engagement of all levels of governments, of all stakeholders, of private businesses, but also citizens. And I think here it's worth talking about the European Climate Pact, which is also part of the European Green Deal, which would be key to ensure broad societal engagement in the transition towards climate neutrality. And here I think we can still get some inspiration from the local level, and I will quickly talk about the climate plan of Rotterdam, the city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. So a climate agreement was made between the city of Rotterdam and over 100 private companies and social organizations. It has led to almost 50 so-called climate deals that aims at boosting the reduction of greenhouse gas emission in the city. And this agreement contains plans for large-scale solutions such as offshore wind farm or the construction of hydrogen network, but also smaller scale solutions such as car sharing and cycling class for children. So the European Climate Pact can play a big role in helping to engage with the citizens, to engage with the private sector in order to all together achieve the same goal of climate neutrality. And the last initiative I will mention before going to my conclusion, it's the 100 climate neutral cities mission. You may have heard about it. It comes from Professor Mazzucato with this idea of sending the man to the moon. So climate neutrality is the same type of project, you know, and this mission is aiming at having 100 pilot cities which will aim at reaching climate neutrality by 2030. And how are they going to do that? Well, they're going to do that by involving the citizens, by involving all the private sector of one given city, aiming at the same commitment for everyone by signing as well a climate city contract. So those are some of the initiatives that I think are worth mentioning when we talk about how can cities and regions deliver the European Green Deal. Overall, I've tried to show that so many good initiatives already exist in cities. Cities are willing to move forward, to go further, to go faster. Cities can do a lot to deliver the European Green Deal and its objectives, but they cannot achieve everything alone, and they cannot unlock their full potential without an ambitious EU policy framework in place. And this is why cities welcome the European Green Deal and its objectives, but it's now time to put this ambition in practice by, for example, revising the EU 2030 climate and energy objectives to at least 55% legally binding at member state level, to ensure efficient and timely implementation and enforcement of the climate legislation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Louise. Now I think we'll go from more, let's say, holistic approach to more regional and actually go down to earth. But of course, Louise was raising some of the issues more locally and with some particular examples from Rotterdam, Paris, and others. But I think it would be interesting also to hear us from Marie Bern, that is a climate coordinator in Mid-Norway Country Council, about their perspective, Nording situation, let's put it that way. And that will be very interesting, especially that we are now in quite a mild 16 degrees outside in Brussels, going to a bit colder Norway with 4 degrees. I just saw it. But, let's hear a bit about from your perspective, and then we'll go forward. Thank you.
We had frost this night, the first frost, and difficult driving conditions, indeed. Candice, I have some PowerPoint slides. Yes, thank you. I very much happy to be invited to this webinar. My contribution is to draw a picture of how the Green Deal provides us guidance and spurs solutions here in Trøndelag. I will first highlight how and why we have developed a strategy for climate transition before I present a few of the solutions under development. Trøndelag is a region in the middle part of Norway. It's the dark blue region on this slide. It has a coastline towards the North Sea and a land border to Sweden. We have extensive agriculture and aquaculture production. In size, the region is comparable to the Netherlands. And we have approximately half of the region's inhabitants in Trondheim, 200,000. This is the largest city in the region and the third largest city in Norway, where also the Norwegian University of Science and Technology is based. Next slide, please. The Regional Climate Transition Strategy was approved last week by the Regional Parliament. The political ambition is a climate neutral region by 2030. The goals in the strategy is to reduce climate gas emissions with 50%, to reduce the climate footprint, and to be a climate resilient region by 2030. We aim to provide guidance to the municipalities through this strategic platform. And the thematic areas in the strategy are food, buildings, transport, carbon sequestration, plastic and materials, and social encounters, all in line and highly inspired by the European Green Deal. Circular economy and digitalization and the reduction of climate risk are all being described within these thematic areas. Through research, we know that the municipalities are essential in developing the solutions for a low carbon society, but we also know that they lack capacity for handling the climate issue. And to address this, we, as a regional authority, we have made the strategy to make it easier for the municipalities to develop a local action plan. It's not realistic that all the 37 small municipalities in Trøndelag have climate experts. We need the politicians and the administrative staff to take an ownership of the issue and focus on climate solutions when they do planning, when they do city development, when they build new schools and other public services, and when advising and providing subsidies to the local actors. The next slide, please. In the strategy development phase, we organized a workshop for young people from the whole region, inviting them to share their opinions on what are the challenges related to climate in their everyday life. And young people in Trøndelag believe that a low carbon society will be one with the more locally produced food, greener surroundings, more public transport, and changed consumer patterns. And they believe that this change is possible and that the life quality will actually increase if we buy less and share and fix more of the things that we need. Next slide, please. As a public sector entity, we can take on various roles when developing solutions. And the Trøndelag Regional Authority is, for example, the owner and operator of high schools in the region. Next slide. In the agricultural high school named Mare, we have combined this role of being a high school, having high schools. We combine it with the R&D environment. We use the school facilities as a living test lab. Here we can develop zero emission solutions for a farm with livestock, with decentralized energy production, fossil-free solutions, and climate resilient agricultural produces and techniques, both providing the researchers a lab, but also educating the farmers of tomorrow. Next slide, please. Norway is a very digital or highly digital society, and there is a high potential in using digital platforms. For example, we have related to our role as an owner and operator of buildings in Trøndelag. We are now, together with startups from the university and construction companies, developing a digital platform for the reuse of building materials and furniture. And a player here in Trondheim named Ducky has used a digital platform for gamification of habitual change in order to make behavioral change into a competition related to your climate footprint. Next slide, please. Then, as a provider of public transport, it is important to use our purchasing power. We can spur the market to provide technology not yet available. And by collaborating with other regional authorities in Norway, we are attempting now to purchase a zero-emission speedboat. The speedboats constitute an important part of the public transport service in Norway, and they represent a large share of climate gas emissions. But the technology is not mature yet, so we try to develop it together with the industry actors. Next slide, please. So to summarize, most of our solutions are developed in close collaboration with business, with R&D sector, and representatives from the civil society. And the goals set in Europe and the European Green Deal provide us guidance and support in driving the climate transition forward. And then I have my last slide. Thank you for your attention. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy that all the panelists are so strict on timing. That's very easy for me to work with. But let's go forward, and then now we'll go to Nicolas Joyot, who is the Deputy Mayor for Urban Planning and Housing in Ville de Caen. But he will share with us their experience with good practice and showcase some concrete projects on how the city has become more climate friendly. So Nicolas, the floor is yours, please. And please remember to put your questions in the chat. I already seen that Louise is answering some of them, which is great, but please add more and we'll be happy to go to them in the end, in the final part of this workshop. Thank you, Nicolas.
Hello to everyone. Thank you for inviting us at this webinar. To begin with, a few words about Caen City on Greater Caen District. Next slide, please. Is it possible to go to next slide? Oh, thank you very much. So Caen is 105,000 inhabitant city, close to the sea. It's 15 kilometers away from the channel with a link to Portsmouth. The Greater Caen district is gathering 50 towns, and agriculture is on farming is an important economic activity on our territory. The city of Caen is crossed by a river, Lorne, on a canal, and so Caen has to face two major risks: flooding and, in midterms, sea rising. And so, sustainable development and climate change mitigation are not an option on our territory. It's a matter of resilience. It's a matter of attractiveness on a midterm, on a long term. Next slide, please. So on the top left figure, you can see the evolution of our energy consumption, which has decreased over the past years, such as the carbon emissions by 7% between 2005 and 2015. It's less than the target of the Covenant of Mayors, which was 20% by 2020. And it shows the target we have to decrease the energy consumption by 50% by 2050. In the meantime, on the top right figure, you can see that there is no major sector responsible for carbon emissions. The 5 major sectors are food, housing, transportation, freight, and services. So the difficulty is to find solutions in each of these public policies. And so it needs an integrating approach with dedicated strategies resulting in a CCAP in 2021. Sorry. So next slide to focus on the energy sector. Two solutions we developed or we are going to develop. Caen is partner of the Compete for CCAP project. It aims at helping local authorities put their existing CAP into action. Concretely, we worked on 3 public buildings with other cities. These buildings have been monitored to follow and to discover the real use of energy in it. And this work was made with users of these buildings and city staff to reduce the energy consumption. And a contest was organized with the other cities to enable us to reduce this energy consumption. We are also looking for the EUCF tool to develop a project entitled Speed Dating for Energy Transition. Over the past year, the Greater Caen district has facilitated the retrofitting of around 1,000 housing per year. But the ambition is to reach 3,000 housing retrofitting per year to meet our energy target, to meet this decrease of 50% we saw previously. So we have to work to reach this target, and we're looking for offering a sort of one-stop shop to people in the Greater Caen district. After the energy sector, a look at the food sector. As I said, agriculture is an important economic activity in the Greater Caen district, producing mainly cereals. So we had to build a sustainable food plan, strategic orientations, with stakeholders, with people, with the profession, and so we worked at building a local and sustainable food plan with 5 major targets: set up a proper food governance, take into account food and city planning, support local economy, and strengthen close collaboration and social cohesion, and ensure that local authorities procure with local food networks. And some projects of this global plan has already been implemented or are going to be implemented during the next weeks or months, such as the Caen Urban Farm, which is a project developed on 2 sectors, 2 sites, one in Caen, in an urban renewal sector, the other in a town just near Caen, with 2 issues. The first one in Caen, raising awareness, and the second one in Fleury, near Caen, for farming and producing. And those 2 projects are led with 1 leader and many stakeholders. To help us in this project, Caen is involved in a urban transfer network project. Rome was awarded the EU Good Practice City 2 years ago for its management of urban agriculture. Rome leads the urban transfer network with 6 partners to help them understand and transfer their good practice. So Caen is very interesting for the from farm to fork strategy developed by the European Green Deal to upgrade his project. Next slide. The context of the Caen project, sorry. So it's a peninsula which is located between the River Orne on the canal, which was an industrial land, but economic crisis led to the end of industrial activities on the peninsula, counts many wasteland now, and in the meantime, we have no other land left in Caen to develop new district, and we want to protect agriculture and farming lands around Caen. So we produced a master plan on this wasteland to develop a new eco-district, eco-district of the city. And we had to change minds about this district, and we have to bring footfall to the heart of the peninsula before it turns into a residential district, and before land are built. And so the solution was to open Pioneer France on the urban farm project. Is about this target. So you have here different activities which have already been set on the project. Bio-waste composting, to collect waste in the city center by bike, urban gardening, shared kitchen, educational workshop, whereas in Fleury-sur-Orne and near Caen, we are working on a farming project to produce and transform here in the Peninsula's project. So as a conclusion, I would say that our levers for action to implement the European Green Deal are strategic frameworks officially approved about energy with an energy master plan, about sustainable and local food plan, and those frameworks, those plans are developed into different actions, each of one enhance the value of ongoing structuring projects of the territory, activating the peninsula, for example, before land marketing and before the new district will be built, for example. We have the chance in Caen to have many partners, a strong network of partners who are ready to be activated to be part of these new projects. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. That was very inspiring, I think, for all of us. I think we'll now go to the questions that came from the chat. There are quite a lot of them, so I hope, thanks to our friends from the organizers, we try to pick them one by one and then try to at least to answer those which were put on chat and which are able for our panelists to reply to. I think we'll start with the first question from Arthur Rubinat. It's regarding Maria was saying about Trøndelag region, let's say, participation of youth in climate actions, and his question is around how cities and indeed regions are dealing with getting more citizens' participation in those actions that they are proceeding with in the region. Maria?
Yes, I'm happy to try to answer that question. Of course, it's always very important that such citizens' involvement is in a systematic way, that it's not a one-time action. as we did now for the development of the climate strategy. It was a political response because the politicians wondered why are 3,000 of the school children in Trondheim out on the streets showing their solidarity with Greta Thunberg and the Fridays for Future strike. They wanted to know what are they thinking about. So we collaborated with the university here in Trondheim, setting up a framework on that was physical. The researchers said it's very important to have a physical meeting point for youth. And the researchers and the facilitators that we used were not climate experts, but they were experts on involvement, and they treated the youth as the experts. And we used youth in doing the workshops. We have a report from that climate workshop that was available as it was part of our knowledge basis shaping the strategy. And what we now do in the future steps is that all municipalities in Trøndelag has youth council. That is youth that are recruited from the local community in order to have the youth opinion on various policy issues in their area. And what we now do is that we build the capacity and competence within the youth councils now on climate transition. What kind of questions can they ask to their local politicians when they take decisions regarding buildings, regarding infrastructure planning, city planning, climate budget. What we see is it's all often, of course, an issue with climate or with citizen participation, how to ensure that the people that you reach are the representatives. That's, of course, a weakness in our youth or our climate workshop. That was it was people with a high socio-economic background. We do not reach out to those who we are supposed to not leave behind. That will always be an issue when we design citizen involvement initiative, I think. And we are now looking into how to follow up on the climate. Oh, I forgot the word. There is a word for this to involve inhabitants within the European deal, the climate impact. Louise, you talked about it.
The European Climate Pact.
Thank you. Yes. Can we use techniques such as randomly selecting inhabitants to participate in citizens' juries, for example? Is that a way? And how to do that, and how to make the politicians commit that they will accept what the citizens' jury actually has an opinion on. So it's work in progress.
Thank you, Mary. I would hope that maybe also Nicola and Louise could give us a bit of answer also to that question, because I think citizen participation is something very important from a perspective of any policy, and both Louise on a more broader perspective of umbrella organization of cities may have some good examples. And there was also a question from Astrid Aller about this roofing issue, which maybe you can also only touch about just briefly, because we don't want to go too much into details. And then maybe I'll go to Nicola to tell us a bit about how the citizenship and how to talk to the citizens is important on the regional and city level. Now, Louise, please.
Thanks a lot, Andrzej. Yeah, very quickly. I think what you say, Mary, I feel it, because this is a concern that we are having in our cities when it comes to citizen engagement. Although we do believe that citizen engagement is the way forward, it's going to be impossible to achieve the climate goal without a good and sound citizen engagement process. So I wanted to mention a couple of cities that have tried and succeeded to put that in place. As I mentioned, Rotterdam with the climate agreement, perhaps on a logistical point of view, how did it work to reach this climate agreement? Well, the city authorities used roundtables with the citizens several times. I think they hosted more than 50 at the end roundtables to reach this, to get this climate agreement, and also public debates. So this is the way that Rotterdam has tried to put that forward in order to reach this climate agreement with citizens and also private stakeholders. I would like to mention Nantes as well in France that has hosted this great debate. It's quite famous also when it comes to citizen engagement, because they have created a committee of an independent committee only with citizens. More than 53,000 people participated in this commission, and this has led to different crowdfunding campaigns or energy projects and so on. So quite a successful one here. The Plan Paris Plus that I mentioned, how did they do that? Well, they have created the plan directly with the citizens. During the evenings, there were some discussion open to all the citizens of one of the arrondissement, one of the neighborhood, on what it means to be implemented in this neighborhood. And perhaps a last one, Amsterdam, because they have done something quite different. They have also a climate pact. And this is a platform, an online platform that you can find, where the city's authorities are trying to engage with the citizen through like small projects, so such as a small crowdfunding campaign to put solar roof on public school, for instance, and where it's also led by the citizen, so the citizen can propose any type of activities or action as long as it helps to mitigate or adapt to climate change in Amsterdam. So those are a couple of initiatives where cities have tried to involve the citizen very early in the process, because we do believe that it's the best way to get a proper engagement of citizens when you involve them as from day one, when you just start to think about what to implement in your city. So that was do you want me, Andrzej, to tackle the green roof? But I think
just
that
briefly, I know that you answered it, but just briefly for everyone to hear, maybe.
Sure. So the question was from Astrid in Copenhagen on the difficulties of installing a green roof. Indeed, green roof have some disadvantages, if I can say. It's more expensive, it's heavier on any roof, and it requires extra maintenance. But the benefits of green roof really counterbalance those disadvantages. It boosts the thermal performance of your building, for instance. On bus stop, it improved the drainage system. It increased the lifetime of the roof. It helps the environment. It supports the wildlife habitats. It's had for air quality. So the cities that are implementing green roof do believe that the benefits of implementing green roof are greater than the potential disadvantages. And perhaps if Astrid wants to get some good cases on the comment of mayor, there are lots of best practices on how to implement these green roofs on different surfaces. I can put the link into the chat.
Thank you very much. I think it was also a bit to reply to Nino Kuna in his chat interventions to also show the concrete examples, and actually this panel is all about concrete examples. So I just wanted to raise that. But now maybe going back to the participation and to Nicolas, because he's actually, if I'm not mistaken, the only elected person in this workshop. So it's also interesting to see how he is convincing the citizens of his city of Caen and the region, which is strongly agricultural based region of France, and how to show to the citizen that actually the Green Deal is about grow and is something that benefits the citizen and is not a threat to a traditional way of let's say lifestyle that actually this quite agricultural region has. So please, Nicola, if you could maybe share with us a bit of your experience.
The work is in progress. Citizens' involvement in transition is essential. on the Caen Urban project, Caen Urban Farm project, we worked with a local group composed by citizens, by professionals, by associations, sorry, different stakeholders, and finally citizens became took the lead in the project, and the city of Caen had followed what citizens wanted to do. So we worked with an urban local group, and so citizens were really with citizens and associations really took the lead in the project, and it was one of the methodology to reach the target for the city. It was finally to let the citizens take the lead, and we were working. We spoke to work from farm to fork, but we can also work from fork to farm, and finally having agriculture and citizens around the same table. We're sharing what's in our plate, and then asking, but where does it come from? How do you work? And we really work also from fork to farm, and finally, yeah, citizens really took the lead in this project. Globally, another transition project for transportation, for example, transition is also worked with our citizen city council in each district of the city, and finally, even if the environment the target is reached because inhabitants want to share the street, wants to reduce the place of cars, for example, and even if the environmental, if the sustainable issue is not at the heart of their questions. Finally, what they want is just a transition with other words, with other issues, but it reaches the targets city have. Sorry for this English, but
no, not a problem. I was just actually, but that was a short follow-up, if you may, to you, Nicola. I was wondering because as we were discussing, it's, you know, farm to fork is one of the initiatives taken by the Commission, and it's good that on the local level you can actually talk to the farmers and then try to convince them that this is something to go forward with. But I was just kind of trying to link it to what a lot of, you know, in the end, it's all about the money, to be honest. And in the end, a lot of questions also from our forum and from our chat is around how, you know, we are all speaking about those nice goals and now nice ideas, but how the new proposals of the Commission can be linked with the direct examples of work. And maybe I'll go to Grzegorz and then maybe back to you, Nicola, if you don't mind. But Grzegorz, this is the next generation EU. Is actually, there are two tools in the discussion about the budget. One is the typical MFF, let's say, discussion budget, and another one which is quite innovative is the next generation EU. Maybe you can tell us a bit more how this next generation EU, which is basically an investment tool that Commission is putting in place, how that can be linked to European Green Deal and to the right questions that were raised in the chat about how, both by Arthur Rubinat and I saw also from Coffineau, about, you know, how to have funds that can tackle actually those challenges we are facing. So please, Grzegorz, if you can enlighten us a bit about that.
Thank you, Andrzej. Yes, you know, the next generation EU. So this additional part of the budget has been labeled from the outset that this is for recovery. This is for quick recovery. So of course we need the investment to be happening immediately, and we need the investment for the twin transition, and twin transition meaning green and digital. So that was this is the logic of this new instrument. The major part of the next generation money, this is the recovery and resilience facility. This is going sorry, I will have to mention the percentages. The 37%, that's the goal to when it comes to climate. 37% of this money should be spent on the climate related or climate friendly investment. What is this? It is of course all which is linked with the renewable energy, all which is linked with the energy efficiency, all which is linked with the sustainable modes of transport, the clean transport. So all these investments that cities are interested in, how it functions how it will function. Of course, you know, these are the teething days of this of this instrument, so we have no experience to refer to, but how it is supposed to work. This is central. The plans, the member states are supposed to deliver to the Commission the plans, the recovery plans, and as I said, they should be mostly constructed on the basis of the green and or with the eye on the digital and green transformation. Given the amount of money we talk about, I would imagine that the process with each and every capital looks like this. This is centralized, as I said. So the role of the central administration should be to gather all projects that would be eligible along the lines that I described. If you want a much more detailed description, then I would refer you to the guidelines that are already out there to be read by everyone interested. So the guidelines are there, which type of project could be financed. I believe regions, cities, all interested potential beneficiaries should get in touch with the central administration in each and every member state to provide the projects, which could be in the end part of the national recovery plans, which are supposed to be delivered to the Commission together within the context of the European semester, which is actually in spring 2021. That's the formal date for delivery of the national plans. Now we are still in the phase where these plans are being informally discussed. So the national administration, central administration, I repeat and I underline, is in discussion with Commission. So we provide the informal guidelines how these plans should look like, how the projects should look like. But the homework is to be done by all those interested in the funds back home, so that the national administration knows what type of projects coming from regions are there. And one of the criterion to not only, I'm not now talking about the substance, but rather about the timing. One of the criteria which is important to be taken into account is the readiness or the preparedness of these projects, because as said, indeed, actually in the chat as well, it was underlined that what we need to do with the recovery plans is to implement them, and with the projects to implement them immediately. So the money will be there for immediate put into the real economy to finance concrete projects which are linked with the Green Deal to finalize the entire story. So and that's exactly the time. And as we speak, I hope that the representatives of the cities, of the regions, are already in touch with the appropriate authorities in their respective member states. If not yet, then I would encourage to do that. That's exactly the time to act. If I have 1 minute, I could also refer to other program which is a bit different, and it requires a bit more time perhaps, but it's would be more conducive to finance innovative solutions, and that is the investment plan, which was already there. So it's your European strategic fund, European Fund for Strategic Investments. Now, in the new financial perspective, it will be called InvestEU, and that is the combination of the EU public funds with the private capital. Our role is to engage private capital into financing of some innovative solutions. And the difference, of course, is the basic difference is that we cannot. This part is, I mean, the investment EU is something which is foreseen to be a bit long-term investment with more innovative elements in there. Of course, a bit different than in the logic than those projects that will be financed from the recovery plan, where the immediate action is needed. So but of course the palette and of the available programs is much bigger, but well, as I said, probably we would need to have another session, a long session for that. But these two, at least, I wanted to flag to you at this juncture. Thank you.
Thank you, Grzegorz. We are having 50 minutes to the end of this panel, so I will hope that we will be able to come to each one of the panelists and give them a bit of a time to tell them a bit of let's say, what they think is the most important and what they want to kind of think, or let us think after this discussion what we should remember. But I will just go to Nicola and also ask him for a bit of a maybe final remarks from his side, although we still have 50 minutes, so I might come back to him in the final stage. But please, Nicola, there was one thing that I think was interesting, which was also raised in the chat, but I wanted to come back to it. So, of course, Grzegorz was referring to the EU funds and the money that are being brought on the table. But what is your perspective from a politician point of view? Let's put it like that, and a policymaker also. Is only the money the biggest problem, or also convincing the public to this transformation? Because indeed, I think those two challenges are sometimes interlinked. And could you tell me a bit more about that, and to all of us here in the workshop?
Both funding and convincing people, citizens, are an issue. Of course, funding for investing in infrastructure is an issue for local authorities, and we need to be helped. But changing habits of citizens, working on behavior is also a huge work to do with people, and perhaps local authorities have not worked enough on the behavior changing of people. Perhaps this work has not been considered as essential until now, but I think that now we have enough. It's not just words, because there's so much work to do, but changing habits for citizens is slower than building the city differently. I mean, a new district are built differently than we did 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Just to take the example of transportation, of mobility, walking, using bikes are at the heart of the urban planning now. Nevertheless, we can see that citizens do not change as fast their habits to move, for example. And so there's a huge work to do on this specified issue to help citizens to change habits and to change behavior. I think it's a crucial point too.
Thank you, Nicola. If you don't mind, I will now go to Mari, who is representing a country which, you know, especially from a perspective, let's say, of typical European, it seemed like the one that doesn't have a financial problem at a daily basis, let's put it that way. But in the end, managed to also show that it's not only about the money, but also about, you know, I mean, working closely with the citizens. So if she may maybe add us a bit of that perspective. Of course, she said that a bit in the beginning of her presentation, but I would like to also hear if she maybe could have something additional to say about that, and also say how you know, leading by example could be also benefiting the European Union in that perspective.
Yes, I think that the transition that we are in, and also for Norway, we are a rich country, but we need to spend and reorganize our whole economy from being fossil fueled and transitioning into a renewable. Also value chains, and that means that less money also from the public sector will be generated, but we will also have there are strengths that we can build upon in this transitional work, and the leaving something behind, stopping to do something, will also actually give us funds to do something in a new way. And I think when it comes to this the citizens' involvement, I'm sorry to say, but the Norwegian people are one of the highest, have the highest share of contestants to is global warming actually a problem. So there you see the the influence that the oil and gas sector has on shaping what is perceived as a problem. But I also do believe that we cannot sit here in a public administration thinking that we can develop solutions that people will accept. We have to go to develop solutions together with the industry, with our research and development actors, because that's when we can actually make good solutions, when we develop it in collaboration.
Thank you for that. I would like to maybe do a small side remark. It's probably because of the weather in Norway, but that probably is not something that I should say publicly with the climate deniers. But anyway, now I'll go to Louise because we have a couple of, let's say, member states in the European Union who are lagging behind a bit with the, let's say, the perspective on green transformation and fighting the climate change. I'm not sure if it's because of the climate denials or more because of the structure of the society and the way the economy is built in those countries. But could you maybe tell us a bit, because you're indeed representing some of the cities which are quite, let's say, forward-looking, even from those regions. Could you tell me a bit how cities can act even locally, even though with the central administration is not so optimistic about the change and transformation?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Andrzej. Indeed, we face that at Eurocities as well. You may have heard about the pact of the 3 cities, or perhaps the 4 Visegrad cities, which are Bratislava, Budapest, Prague, and Warsaw, that are lobbying Brussels, in fact, in order to get direct funding, which is related also to the discussion we had beforehand, and in order to move forward the climate agenda in their countries, even though sometimes their countries are not the most progressive when it comes to achieving the climate transition. So what can the cities do? Well, in fact, they do already a lot. I will take a couple of examples, but cities can do a lot when it comes to renovation of buildings. The city of Budapest has said, for instance, that they will increase the renovation rate up to 3% annually, which is huge when it comes to the number of buildings that is meant to be renovated every year. On that, in fact, it makes me a link with the question of is funding the biggest problem? Well, when it comes to renovation of buildings, funding is finally not the biggest problem. Buildings, your apartment, we are almost all sitting in our apartments now with teleworking. It's so individual. It comes back to something so personal that the issue for renovation is much more an individual problem of touching your comfort zone by renovating your building than on funding. That was in brackets, sorry. But yeah, and the cities, they can do a lot also on developing and incentivizing the public transport infrastructure. So this is the case, for instance, in Warsaw. Where the mayor is trying to push a lot for having more cycling paths and with green infrastructure around it in order to incentivize the Polish citizens to use their bikes to commute every day. And perhaps something that we haven't mentioned yet, it's on waste. So waste is a huge emitter of CO2. And waste is a competence of cities. So cities can do a lot when it comes to decreasing the emissions of CO2 coming from the waste sector. This is very much in line with the circular economy, also from the Green Deal. Yeah, so the way that the cities collect and separate waste can also have an impact on the emissions of CO2 in cities. So yes, the city, despite having a kind of reluctant member states, if I can say, when it comes to climate, can still do a lot. And indeed, they can also lobby Brussels in order to have to get more direct access to the available EU funding in order to put in place all their super progressive and climate-friendly agendas.
Thank you for that. I will now, if you don't mind, go to Nicola. Maybe if you could just, because we are ending that panel and we have to finish quite sharply, could you tell us, very briefly, it's very difficult always, but maybe in 2 minutes, just what is your main kind of overlook on how you see the Green Deal in your perspective of Caen and your local, challenges and what you're facing. So something more broadly, but to leave us with something of a summary.
Perhaps a conclusion which is much global, but I'd like to focus on 2 points. The first one is a global governance, a worldwide governance, and the second, on another level, people and citizens. Because to reach the targets of the Paris Agreement, the European Union should also work, or perhaps does work, on the emergence of a global governance. We won't be able to reach international goals, an international target, when, for example, the presidents of a major world power unilaterally decided to get out to the Paris Agreement. And to me, the issue of a global governance is a major challenge for the European Union. But for this, we need to be exemplary into our territory, into the European Union. And so adapting a Green Deal is essential, and helping local authorities reaching the objective is essential. The second point is people and citizens who must be put at the heart of our sustainable development policies. And even if it seems obvious, we often have to face social issues. For example, the Yellow Vest strikes 2 years ago in France arise when the government announced a carbon tax on fuel after decades and decades of urban sprawl policies. And so people, citizens, must be put at the core, at the heart of our sustainable development policies. And we found in the EU tools, we experimented in Caen, EURBACT, Urban, Compete for CCAP, for example. And we hope on the new UFC tool, we found tools which put citizens at the heart of these policies and at the heart of the building of solutions. And I think this is essential too, to reach the objective of changing how we live and how we live, and to leave nobody behind. Just a word as a conclusion, but for our grandparents, the European Union was the promise of peace and economic growth. I think those economic growth and peace for a young generation, even if nowadays we can question it, but perhaps economic growth and peace seems to be I don't know the word, acquis. It seems
take for granted.
Yeah, that's it. But perhaps for tomorrow, for our generation, perhaps for next generation, the European Union could be the promise, or can be the promise of a sustainable development and sustainable peace. And I think both a global governance and work with citizens are part of the answer.
Thank you, Nicolas. To be honest, I think it was one of the best summary I would actually say, because we were all talking about very, let's say, concrete examples, which is good because that's what our panel was for. But we sometimes forget to when we are losing the big picture, that we are facing something which of a global and you know, I mean, the biggest I would say challenge for the universe. Which thank you for that. And I as we have to finish, you know, quite sharply, I would leave it as it is. And I also know that my colleagues, that the panelists were agreeing with that approach, but I would like to thank them in the end for taking their time, for Maria Bern, for Louise for Grzegorz Radziejewski and you, Nicolas Joa, for taking your time and being present with us here. I would also like to thank the regions that were involved in organizing this event. So it's the West Norway office, which were the lead partners and coordinator, Jorunn Skoide, which she did quite a lot to prepare this. So I would like to thank her gratefully for that. The Warmia-Mazury region from northern eastern part of Poland, Mid-Norway of European office, with which Maria is also representing, and city of Caen, which we had Nicola here representing. So thank you for that. I also would like to thank you, the organizers, the Committee of Regions and DG Regio, for the whole series of workshops that the European Week of Regions and Cities is presenting. I think with that, if my colleagues, the panelists, don't have any much to add, or just thank you all for taking your time and participating in this panel. Of course, all of us, I think, are quite easy to reach, but if needed, I think maybe the Mid-Norway European office can give you some contact points to us if you would have some follow-up questions, and I hope I can speak on behalf of the panelists in that matter. And well, thank you, and I think I can wrap it up with this. So have a nice rest of the day or evening, actually. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.